Hey, hello everyone. I hope you are fantastic today. My name is Justin Phillips and I'm streaming in from beautiful Bribie Island in southeast Queensland, Australia. And today we're having another one of our awesome chats with the amazing Jost Sauer, aka the Lifestyle Medicine Man. And our interviews have certainly been covering some very interesting topics. And I hope you are taking advantage of this incredible information that Jos has been sharing with us and taking notes and really getting into it. So I'm going to do a bit of a quick intro for Jos now, and we'll get into the interview very shortly. So, as I said, my name's Justin Phillips, and my wife and I, Nicole Dennis, we're very passionate about helping empower people with health and happiness and prosperity. And we're very blessed to live an extraordinary life on Bribie Island, stay at home, work from home parents with a mostly online business that is really making a difference while making a living. And it is extraordinary what we can do in this day and age with technology to reach out and influence people in a positive way through great technologies like Zoom and Facebook and so forth. And get the word out there about this really important information and knowledge that people need to know. So before we get started, please ask you not to record the call. The call is being recorded on your behalf and is Facebook Live into the Facebook group Renew with Redox. By all means, if you'd like to join that group, please reach out to the person that invited you to the interview or reach out to me in the chat box and I can arrange that for you. It is a private group and it's got some great information about the redox technology in there, which is just a little part of what we cover in today. But yes, there's so much more to being truly healthy, and there's a whole lifestyle approach, which is the main topic of what we're talking about. And today we are talking about: are you committed or are you obsessed? And one is healthy while the other is toxic, and it's sometimes very hard to tell the difference. So it's kind of pretty important that we get that right. And yes, if you're feeling guilty, if I don't, well, that's probably a sign of being obsessed. And many of us start out committed and end up obsessed or unable to let go of something. And if you get or send emails late at night, or you can't switch off, you're always checking your phone and things like that, it's probably obsession territory, and that's going to be a bit of a problem for you and unhealthy in the end. So yeah, it's a great topic for us to talk about. Also, this leads to overworking the spleen, and it's a lifestyle disease area. And most of us in the Western countries, we now are mostly affected by lifestyle diseases, and it's a choice. But sometimes we, through conditioning or through, just the ways of being, our upbringing, our institutionalization, perhaps it's a culture that we're living in. We can, quite easily go into overwork mode and burn ourselves out, and that's a real problem. So Jos is going to teach us some tips around how to draw the line about this and override that peer pressure and overwork and over deliver, and how to ditch the guilt and learn to switch off and activate your healing mechanisms. So the amazing Jos Sauer was born in 1958. He's a doctor of Chinese medicine. I met the Jost when he was the supervisor of the acupuncture clinic in the Australian College of Natural Medicine, which is now, I realised yesterday, is 20 years ago. Holy cow. So I've been blessed to know him and know of his work for that long. And my wife and I actually experienced some pretty big health challenges ourselves. Um, I had a health challenge for 20 years, multiple systemic bacterial infections, stealth infections. They're not actually recognised. I had Lyme disease, so mycoplasma. So Lyme disease is not recognised by the Australian Medical Association and the Australian government as a disease that you can catch in Australia. So that was a real challenge. And my wife had fatigue issues for 25 years. And so really we just searched for many, many years on different solutions and different ways to improve our health and well-being. And Jos was a part of that, of course, that journey. So thankfully we overcame those around 67 years ago, and life's been very, very different. But we're always on the lookout for great technologies and treatments to share with others, and to develop these stay-at-home, work-from-home style businesses and help influence the people that need it. But back to Jost, he was born in 1958 in Germany, and he's always had a massive passion in health and fitness. And his background includes competitive skiing, competitive snow skiing at a national level, bodybuilding, triathlons, Ironman training. And when he discovered Kung Fu and Tai Chi, he realized that fitness is only part of the equation and the vitality is the other. And that led to decades more research in how to live and how to use nutritional supplements and an optimal diet, therapeutic exercise, weightlifting, martial arts, meditation, redox signaling molecules, Tai Chi, yoga, and this combination of things to make you feel good. But then Yos added in the 24-hour movement of Qi, which is a kind of Chinese medicine version of the body clock. And it connects our day-to-day activities to the natural cycles of life. And that's when he developed his Qi cycle lifestyle, which is the ultimate in lifestyle medicine. It's founded on thousands of years of Chinese medicine, and with over 30 years of Yost's own academic research and practical observations from living it, Jost has become a dynamic, inspiring speaker, author of many books, even videos, and a real authority on the subject. So thank you so much, Jost, for joining us today. How are you?
Yeah, very good.
Fantastic.
It's always good, yeah.
Yeah, yes, you are. You are always good. Every time I see you, you are good. It's you're
I'm obsessed about good weather.
very, very topical. Yes, but I'm sure that obsession is not keeping you up late at night.
Yeah, good weather doesn't keep you up at night.
Yeah. Oh man, the weather has been beautiful. My garden is like booming. You drive down the street and all the lawns are like brown, and mine's like green, and like all the plants are like just on fire because I've been not obsessed, but definitely committed to a green garden of late and loving it.
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh,
so obsession, hey?
big subject, obviously, big topic. And once again, Chinese medicine's got a lot to say about it because it's an enormous fine line between obsession and commitment.
Yeah.
The problem is that we need to focus on commitment to prevent obsession. So if we don't have commitment in our life, what happened then? Obsession will take over. That's the key. So Chinese medicine, once again, got its play in that regard. And obviously, obsession is something that lots of us deal with. And we have seen a lot of, in my line of work, OCD, obsessive compulsive disorders, obsessively hooked on drugs and all kind of destructive behavioral patterns. So I've seen some really colorful stories, how to get a narrative about what is obsession. And obviously having my own life in that regard, very committed to drugs early in the days, and then realized I'm actually slightly obsessed about it also. So
yeah.
So when I got into the health part, it's very easy to get caught up in the initial dedication towards it, and that requires the commitment. But then it doesn't take long before it becomes obsession.
Yeah.
And this is a real issue to lots of us, and we've got to be aware that why is it an issue? Because if obsession hits you, it gets unhealthy. And I'm going to outline today in which way it is unhealthy. I'm going to talk about it, what symptoms it will cause, and how it then actually ties you further down into obsession, and how commitment is the way out in order to move towards a health. Commitment always equals health. Obsession always equals ill health. Yeah? So this is where Chinese medicine has got its rules and guidelines in place. And it all comes down to that yin and yang regulates life. So the physical world is regulated by yin and yang. That means, as the Taoists talk about it, the sun gets up in the morning and then it fades towards sundown. The moon comes in and it fades to descend. So you always have one phase moving to a next phase. So that means it's always something that is enormously bright and that makes you very active and energized. And there's always something that's completely opposite that goes you within and provides the cultivation. And the path of yin and yang is the key to health. So what we're dealing with is a situation where, like, whatever intensity we have during the day, if we are able to match that during the evening, that means we got two values coexisting. So what I'm saying about that is that during the day, okay, I call it the matching intensity meter. Matching intensity meter. So what it means is, if during the day you've got a very specific level in terms of intensity, when you stop work, you need to match that intensity, because that's the law of yin and yang.
That's like the saying, I like to work hard, but I play hard.
On that level.
Yeah.
On that level. So say the intensity meter goes from 0 to 100. If your intensity meter is 90, which is you would get as a committed professional.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time you finish work, when you stop work, the intensity goes down to 0 or 10. So that's not a balance in line with yin and yang. So it's not bad. That means this is what we observe in Chinese medicine, one of the major problems that causes always ill health. And that's the fact that if during the day your intensity level is very high, say 90, what people do when they stop work, they just stop work. So this is regulated by the liver. If say you are an accountant or a lawyer, so all day you work very, very hard and you're intensely focused on that job. So by the time it comes switch off, time to go home and don't work, you just stop work. But now during the day, the intensity was regulated by the liver, generating a very specific amount of fire, liver yang. So now, say the fire that was risen up is on level 90. So when now the person goes home and stops work, that fire needs to be matched with equal amount of intensity derived from yin. So you can't have one intense job and go home to stop work. That's exactly what will not work. Mm-hmm. So our body is regulated by the dual forces of yin and yang, and within that force is what holds the body together. Yin and yang hold the body together. If the yang is up and you go home and don't do anything about it, what will happen? The fire is not accounted for. The fire then will keep going, and it will cause all kind of like manifestations that wants to rectify itself and will cause all kind of issues later. And I'll talk about exactly what symptoms it will produce. So I'll be talking serious business here.
Yeah,
you know?
Because it's not sustainable. Otherwise, we just burn out. Yeah,
the physical life is a very complicated creation. It's not straightforward. Yeah, you can't just focus on working hard. It's not enough. Mm. Yes. So all in this Western world, what we see is at university, at colleges that tell you, work hard to get your job, work hard, focus, be dedicated, be committed to your job. But it doesn't say what that means in terms of balancing and duality. So going home and watching TV is not the balance to an intense life. If your intensity meter is 10, so that means you would be maybe not doing much during the day, you can switch off with not much doing. Mm-hmm. And mm-hmm. you can switch off with maybe going for a walk. Mm-hmm. So if you don't do much, what it means is the fire is not really ignited much enough. And the result of that is you don't have really much fuel in the heart. Mm-hmm. You don't put much wood into the heart. And you don't put much wood into the fire, that means it's not much burning. So that means when we come home, there's not much the demands of us in order to bring the fire down again.
Mm-hmm.
But if you've got lots going on and you're very committed, the fire goes right up. Now you've got to match that. And that's
Yep.
a key element. Yeah.
And
So
I think particularly before COVID, right, there was a real trend in the Western world for go harder, work harder, like, you know, bang, 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 lots of stuff happening. And I think one of the biggest indications of that is like notifications on the phone, you know,
yes,
where everyone's phone's going ding, 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 ding. And it's all like messages and emails and stuff going on all the time, right?
yeah. And yeah, obviously emails at night and things like that. And but we talk about guilt a little bit later, because guilt actually doesn't come up immediately. It actually develops due to the pathology. That's where Chinese medicine comes into it.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, the guilt of unable to switch off or needing to work is actually acquired due to an energetic problem. So first of all, how we notice that commitment will lead towards obsession is by how do we feel when we stop work. For example, if we have a high intense work or an intense life, and then we are unable to switch off, we can notice we're developing the pathways towards that will actually lead to obsession. So if we needing to binge watch TV in the evenings in order to get that feeling of switch off, we already have a problem. That means the intensity during the day has not been matched with an equal amount of yin to balance.
Mm-hmm.
So needing to binge watch TV shows in the evening is very common. So I see a lot of professionals or mothers or whatever, it can be anyone, they have a high intense life of level of 90, and then comes evening, that need something to get them away from it, and they can't stop after 1, 2, 3 shows and need to keep going.
Yeah.
So binge watching is a result of looking for the yin. The body's looking for the yin. It's looking for the feeling of I am switched off. And that sometimes can take 5, 6 episodes. Well, that means we're looking at 300 to 400 minutes of TV.
Mm.
So what happens now is the person goes to bed later and now gets up later the next day. If you have an intensity meter of 90 during the day and you don't match it with the equal amount of yin, in the evening, what it means is you will not get the momentum wanting to go to bed early. What happens is by comes 9 o'clock, you suddenly feel like, now I'm starting to feel myself. And that's the key. The key is I'm starting to feel myself. Because when it comes to obsession, it's actually moving away from the self. And I'll talk about a bit more when we talk about the pathology aspect. Yeah. So the next thing is as a result of having an intense life where the intensity meters are 90 and unable to match it with an equal amount of intensity in the evenings, what happens is sleep problems will develop. So not only can I can't get to bed early, also sleep problems develop, meaning by the time comes 9 o'clock, and I don't want to go to bed, and if I do go to bed, I may fall asleep for 1 hour, then keep waking up and keep waking up. So I don't have a lasting deep sleep.
Yep.
That's a sign of the intensity has been on 90, but hasn't been matched by the equal amount of yin. So the yang has reached level 90, but the yin is unable to meet the 90. As a result of that is what you're having is unable to sleep. So you don't have that lasting deep sleep. Because in order to have that lasting deep sleep, we need yin. So yin and yang. Yang during the day, that's hot, that's fire. Yin is cold, water, cooling, shadow. When you look at the yin-yang symbol, the white is the sand dune where the sun is shining on. The black is a shadow, the shade of the dune. So So if you have got 90 level of sun during the day, if you don't have 90 levels of shade in the evening, you can't have lasting deep sleep. You keep waking up.
Yeah.
So that means you wake up unrested. Now, when you wake up, you feel like you need a holiday.
Yeah.
So this is where I hear all the time in clinic, I need a holiday, I need a holiday. What it means when we say we need a holiday is yin and yang is not in balance. What it means is the previous day of intensity hasn't been completed by the end of the day. And because the end of the day hasn't been completed, therefore, the next day we wake up unrefreshed and we feel like it's not finished. So the day is still dragging on. So we wake up to the burden of the previous day. And then obviously the first thought that comes in is, I need holiday. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
that makes so much sense.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
The fact is, if Chinese medicine, if you follow the path of yin and yang every day proper, which is what the chi cycle is about, you actually don't need holiday.
Yeah.
You actually never, I can guarantee everyone, if you follow the chi cycle, you will not get that need for holiday. That means if you go on holiday, you actually feel good, refreshed from the first day. You're not going to holiday and feel sick for a whole week.
Yeah. That makes me curious. Like anyone on the call, pop in the chat box, who goes on holidays and gets sick? I've been guilty of that so many times because I've burned myself out, and then finally I get time to rest, and it all comes out. Like I've done that too many times in my life. So it's like getting that balance is just so key, and that's a great indicator to see how you're living.
Yeah, it means like I'm not saying I'm not against holiday. It's just like every day needs to come to its end by the end of the day. If the day has come to an end, that means the next day is a fresh start. You are back at the beginning. So the feeling to needing a holiday means we have moved away from our center. We are separated from the center. Yeah. And obviously that's where we're trying to focus on. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what happens now is if we are waking up to this and don't feel like we have enough energy to get through the day, so what we're having now is we actually start depleting energy fields of the body like spleen, kidney. Now we start what we call in Chinese medicine, we call it violating the will. We're overusing our will, we're overriding how we feel. And as a result of that is, hang on, I have to close the window. It's very noisy out here.
Yeah, sure. Hey, everyone's welcome to put their comments and questions in the chat box. Really encourage conversation, and tell us what you're most interested in, you're most challenged with, so we can talk into that. Love it when everyone engages. Thanks so much, Kylie. Thanks, Nikki. I know Nikki, you're always good to contribute, so appreciate that. Yeah, Heather. Yes, we do live in a holiday spot. We're very blessed like that, and often, like on Brivey, I don't want to go anywhere for holidays.
Yeah, this is so the aim is to get every day as a good day. That's like why my first book was called The Perfect Day Plan. And we got the ability to have every day a good day. It just like this is what we understand how the two forces act on us. We will be able to do that. Yeah. So how are we going to do that? Obviously, that's all good on paper. The aim is to understand that yin and yang regulates life. That means we need at least two things in our life that are of equal intensity, of equal interest, of equal attention, and that equally engages us. The biggest problem I've found is when in my line of work is if people all they have is either family or work. They're only, for example, let's go professional first. The biggest obsession develops if that person all they have is going to the work they do. Say they are a lecturer at university, or the academic field in particular can have that problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, where you expected to work 18 hours a day, where you expected when you finish work at 6 p.m., you then go home and to continue to work.
Yep.
So you can see a lot of professionals where if something happens in their work and they don't have an equal matching interest of equal attention grabbing in their life gets thrown to pieces.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So in Chinese medicine, all the focuses all along have at least two completely opposite equal amounts of interest and dedications and commitments in your life. So that means never one outweighs the other. That means there's never one thing that's more important than the other.
Yeah.
So if you have two equal things in your life, that means whatever happens with one, you always got the other as of equal importance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But could you like perhaps give some examples so that so all of us
For
can
example,
think about and reflect on our own lives and what our interests are?
Okay. For example, if with COVID, for example, that's a classic example. Like a lot of people were really focused on their work, they had their business, and then COVID disrupted. And the whole self-worth, the whole focus of life was based on the business. But now the business wasn't there. So now you sit at home and there's nothing else other than the business. So now you're doing things like, okay, I watch TV, I go for a walk in the park, and I do some crosswords. I may read some books, and I may learn another language, or I may learn pool or whatever. But it's not the same. And what happens now is that the value of the self is disrupted because the work has provided a very specific reference point in life in order to have a connection, the movement. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, for example, if you have let's say you're a dedicated accountant, but then and you got a business running, and but at the same time, you're also totally dedicated in developing your karate in order to move for the next grading, black belt, third dan, whatever.
Yep.
So the interest in the karate is of equal interest to the job. Mm-hmm. So it's almost like you could easily live without the accountancy and just focus just on the karate. Yeah. Uh-huh. So that means if there's a disruption, the karate keeps you going. Mm-hmm. And this is a classic, like in Chinese medicine, in the Buddhist philosophy, in the Taoist tradition, you're not allowed to have just one profession. You're not allowed to have just one. So if you're a teacher, you also need to be, say you're a teacher at school, but that means you also need to be a Tai Chi teacher. That means you need to be dedicated to the Tai Chi, or you're dedicated to herbs and medicine. Yes. So if you're herbal practitioners, you're dedicated to acrobatics or something like that. So you're all the time, like the top swordsman in Japan in the old days, needed to be dedicated also to calligraphy. So they were calligraphy masters.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah.
So you're always, or you dedicated to gardening and orchids. So you always have, but it has to be of equal interest, and it needs to. So it's not much point becoming a gardener if you're not interested in gardening. Yeah. It's got to match your intensity. So if your intensity is on level 90, that means, and gardening provides you 10, then gardening is not a match.
Yeah.
It's got to be 90. Yes. Yeah. So a lot of people say that I don't know what I want to do in life. It's not. It's actually the correct answer is actually how many things do I need to be doing?
Yeah. Not thinking about balancing it.
Yeah, we need more. So it's not about I don't know what to do in life. It's actually the correct question is I don't know what the three things I need to be doing, or the two things. It's never just one.
Yeah.
It's never just one. And the more you have, like in Chinese medicine, they call it the masters of the 5 arts. So that means you're a master in herbalism, you're a master in martial arts, you're a master in philosophy, you're a master in cooking, and you are a master in poetry. That means you're always in business.
Yeah. You've always got stuff to do. Yeah.
You're always in business. Doesn't matter what happens. If there's COVID, doesn't matter. Like for me, COVID didn't disrupt me because I got my research in my martial arts and my kung fu. I'm a musician, so I'm constantly study classical progressions, and I'm all the time. I've got a fully decked up recording studio, but I'm not producing records. Yeah, so everything. I'm always have matching interest. That means whatever disrupts, I go to that. I go to that. I go to this. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So the more the more interest we have, the more we start balancing. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So the more we bring it in line with the path of yin and yang. Yeah. So you can see that with, like, in particular with COVID, I've seen so many people who suddenly just, oh, my life is collapsing. My life is collapsing because whatever business they had, that was all they had.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's no flexibility. That's what Chinese medicine is trying to teach us. Trying to be flexible, moving center, have different skills all the time. So you're a lawyer, but you're equally powerful in the martial art. That means you could easily start a martial arts school.
Yeah.
So you're always in business.
Yeah.
You're always, or you're equally good in cooking. That means you could set up a food delivery business.
Mm-hmm.
All the time. So all the time engaged.
Yeah. And I see that from a personal level, but I also find it in relationships where a person just like their whole world is their other person, and they lose themselves. They lose their own life because they don't do any of the hobbies anymore.
Yeah.
And I find that's always destructive too.
Yeah, that's
like
another obsession that can go really bad.
Yeah. It's all. I've been very blessed with a very long term relationship. Married my high school sweetheart. We've known each other for a long time, and but that's always been one of the rules of our relationship is like, hey, go and do your own things, have your own hobbies, like have freedom around that. Otherwise, and even if you're just in the same house, the same home, just have space to do what you need to do. So important for longevity.
Obsession begins if there's only one thing in life, and now I'm dependent on it. That's how simple it is. Obsession begins if there's nothing else. So if because there's nothing pulling me in the other direction. But if I get two interests of equal intensity, that keep the balance. That means I will switch off at 6 p.m. because I got to do that other thing. I will not do emails at night. Yes.
Yeah.
So this is obviously where now the guilt factor comes in. If we don't have the intensity level that matches the intensity of the day, what happens is spleen, kidneys suffer. It now will lead to Qi stagnation and blood stagnation. And Qi stagnation and blood stagnation will now lead to Qi not moving freely, and it gets blocked in the heart. If it gets blocked in the heart can't provide the light. So it now develops a dark emotion. And guilt is one of the darkest emotions in Chinese medicine. It means there's no light. If there's light, if there's God, there's no guilt. Yeah. If there's light and guilt can't coexist. So by the time I've got guilt already, by the time I got the feeling of guilt, it is already an organ deficiency. I can't address guilt mentally. I can't say I shouldn't be guilty. I shouldn't have that feeling. It's something that is regulated by the organ state, and it's a result. It always comes down to the self. It's innate. It's outside and external. parameters. It's completely within. It's a result of something that has now caused an imbalance in yin and yang of the organ state. And because of the yin and yang of the organ state now being in balance, as a result of that, the light can't shine in certain parts of the body, and that's particular the heart. I'm going to give you an example of what heart blood, the symptoms of heart blood stagnation.
Mm-hmm.
Then we can see, because heart blood stagnation is basically the pathology that leads to obsession and guilt. Okay, here are the symptoms: chest pain, palpitations, pain in the heart region, radiating down the inner aspect of the left arm, stuffiness of the chest, discomfort of feeling of oppression, constrictions of the chest, cold hands.
They sound a lot like heart attack.
Yeah, it's actually the heart attack is obviously later stage, but what it actually is, it's a symptom of that now develops. It's affiliated with atherosclerosis and CVD.
CVD?
Cardiovascular
disease, yeah.
disease.
Yep.
So when it comes to obsession, it's always affiliated with heart blood stagnation, and that's always affiliated with these symptoms that lead to atherosclerosis and cardiovascular disease, which is the biggest killer in our society.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Still the biggest killer in the West.
So what is actually the biggest killer in the world is feeling guilty.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can put it down to one word. What kills people is feeling guilty.
Yeah.
I feel guilty. I should do this. I should do that. I feel guilty of not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So where did it come from? It's so you become your own judge in that regard by guilt, and it can cause all kind of like havoc in terms of giving behavioral patterns and instructions and directions of what to do. So really, instead of saying cardiovascular disease is the biggest killer, we need to say no, it's guilt, feeling guilty, feelings of guilt.
Yeah.
And so that's the result, and that all comes down to the self. And what is the self? So that's obviously, like when you feel guilty, it's not because someone tells you to feel guilty. It's actually innate within. It's within you. In counseling, you're trying to find the core of the problem, but it's actually generated suddenly. It appears suddenly, but we don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you trace it down to all kinds of developments of where it could be in the past, it's still not enough for you to get the grip of it and say, okay, I won't have that guilt feeling anymore.
Mm.
Yeah. So if I go home and I need to send emails at 10 o'clock because I feel guilty if I won't do it, where did it come from?
Yeah, it comes from ourselves.
So it's not commitment anymore. If you're committed, you won't feel guilty. It's a different thing.
Mm.
If I do my Tai Chi practice every morning at 5 o'clock, I don't feel guilty. I don't feel guilty of not doing it. It takes you into a state of yourself that is beyond how we analyze ourselves. So it goes into a state where pure chi is flowing freely in yin and yang. But if we go home and keep working at night because we feel guilty if we don't, it comes down to, okay, we already have moved down the path towards obsession. And it's a result of simply, it comes down to one thing, that we haven't put yin and yang in equal balance to each other.
Mm.
So that's where we need to start a totally different lifestyle. Yeah. Another symptom affiliated with obsession is stagnation of liver blood. And stagnation of liver blood, I'm going to write down the symptoms: depression, irritability, abdominal pain, masses in the abdomen, lump in throat, irregular periods, painful periods, vomiting feels. And then, so the masses in the abdomen obviously leads to the experience of like development of cancer. like stagnation of liver blood is a predisposed, that actually leads eventually to cancer according to that pathology picture. Yeah. So because liver needs to move the chi, liver blood stagnation means accumulation of blood not moving, and that means it will cause something different. So now we can see how feeling guilty and being obsessed can lead to either cardiovascular disease, depression, or even cancer. So this is obviously where it all comes down to, and that's where Chinese medicine starts right from the start. We need to get on top of guilt. We need to avoid the development of guilt. And how we avoid the development of guilt? By focusing on, because it's derived internally, innate within. That means we have to look at how we live. And that takes us into what we talked about in the last few sessions about the 5 Shen. Each organ carries an aspect of ourselves. The true self, the false self. Like, for example, the water type, the wisdom, but the false self is intimidation. So every time I go into my false self, I'm actually causing a stagnation. I'm causing an imbalance in yin and yang. So meaning life gets very, very full on, hard in that regard, that we need to identify how can we actually live correctly from the start. Yeah. And that means we're needing to teach people that there is more than just one thing in their life. That you can't just focus on having a job. You can't just focus on being married. You can't just focus on have just one. There are several other factors, and they all need to be in balance to each other. So we have like an equal distribution of our personal intention about what we want to do in life.
Yeah.
And so I dedicate myself towards say I dedicate being an accountant. So I do my work 9, I finish at a certain time to dedicate myself towards my training in the martial arts or yoga. I dedicate myself to learning about cooking if I have that intensity in there. I dedicate myself into the music. I dedicate myself into education with children and so on. So there's a lot of things that we have now in equal amount that then allow the energy to flow freely because yin and yang are in balance. So that means we commit ourselves to follow the path of yin and yang, and therefore we prevent obsession to take place. So we work hard, we are committed to one, and then we work hard and committed on the other.
Yeah. That's so interesting because I often talk to people about having a purpose, like having a purpose-driven life. But yeah, that can be a problem if it's the single purpose. Like there's got to be other things that motivate you outside of your main thing. That's good. So now I need to revise that and start to coach people to have 2 purposes, 2 commitments.
Yeah, the more the better.
Yeah, 2 or more.
What happened then is well, obviously this is where the lifestyle is coming in. So in order to prevent obsession to take place, because once we get obsessed, we're causing blood stagnation, liver blood stagnation, and heart blood stagnation. That means that will lead to guilt feelings eventually. Feeling guilty, by the time you feel guilty, life is not simple anymore because now you go into the dark emotions. So by the time you're in there, it's very hard to make sense of your life. Very hard to try to make sense of guilt. It's almost impossible. Yeah. So therefore, in order, the idea is now to prevent that. So that's why we obviously need to understand what foods we eat during the day, what we need to understand. For example, if we've got a committed life to our profession, that means we need to understand how to have our breakfast so we don't cause blood stagnation in the heart. That means we need to know how to have lunches and how to stay away from it, because that's the commitment. So if we keep working during lunchtime, we will develop obsession. And obsession always will lead to guilt. And guilt will always lead to either cardiovascular or cancer. So that's so in order, so that means The commitment is towards a specific life. This is where Chinese medicine stated from the start, already 2,500 years ago, that society is the biggest cause for pathology. Because how society, if our conditions and environment teaches us and demands us to live in a certain way, and we don't establish the boundaries towards it and don't distance ourselves from it, we will have pathology in the development.
Wow, can't live with it, can't live without it.
Yeah, you need to be part of it, but we need to also have fierce distance to society. Yeah. Society wants to make us sick. Like if you work for university and you're a professor at university, it's expected of you to go home to work late into the night, to deliver a paper next day. That's how it is.
Yeah.
So that means they expect of you to develop atherosclerosis, cardiovascular disease, depression, anxiety, and cancer. They expect of you to develop feelings of guilt.
Yeah, pretty much any employment that you're getting paid 6 figures or more, it's like they own you.
Yeah, that's it.
Government or corporate, doesn't matter.
We've got to fiercely guard against it, like a vampire. Put the cross up and the garlic up against it and say no.
Yeah, that's why I love Sunday. I liked it when there wasn't Sunday trading, to be completely honest.
Yeah,
I loved it when like Sunday was a day off, like just the energy was so different. Like my favorite days are usually a public holiday, but not a long weekend public holiday, because if that public, it's great to go camping, all that sort of stuff, but if you got a public holiday on a Wednesday, for example, it's like the place is quiet. It's a different energy. Like everyone knocks off. It's different energy.
So we need to understand what causes pathology is how society wants us to live, all the demands it puts onto us, and if we give into it, we will develop feelings of guilt, and now we get caught up in the rut. And how we're going to guard against it is by understanding it, that by following the path of yin and yang, we will prevent that. And that means we need to commit to a lifestyle that will balance yin and yang and follow the path of yin and yang. If we commit to that, we will prevent obsession. And that means you're fully dedicated and committed to whatever you do. So you're committed, say you're a massage therapist, you're fully committed to your massage therapy, but you're equally fully committed to understanding the dietetics. And you could easily start a business in dietetics. Or you're equally dedicated to yoga. You could easily start a yoga class. You could easily start a yoga online class. So that means you all the time have several values in your life that move you around. At the same time, as a result of that is you're obviously meeting people of that somehow put into your life, and you've got some other commitments, and then more and more and more, you keep it all in total in harmony with each other. So that means you put down the rules of what is going down in your life, but because you're committed to each of those areas, that means you always will be part of the better good, the higher good, because you're doing your part. So other people may say, I want more of your time, but it would actually cause an imbalance. Therefore, we need to say no. N-O. The most important word in Chinese medicine is the word no. Say no. Not say no to drugs, not that it's say say no to if there is a dinner party at night and it interferes with with the yin and yang, the idea is to say no. Instead, we suggest to meet for lunch. So the commitment needs towards yin and yang, because if you give in to the demands of others, which will lead for you to get into yin and yang configuration, it doesn't take long before you need to compensate, and that in no time you're down the drain, and it can cause you into all kinds of imbalances. So saying no to a life, to demands that interfere with our path, is obviously the path towards health.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think that's really a piece of gold that is just so important for us to all really live right now. And we're living in an era where there's just so many sheeple. There's so many people just going along with whatever's trendy. And it might be controversial. Well, I was watching a YouTube earlier this morning, and it was a reporter, a journalist who went to the big Black Lives Matter um, march in Melbourne, and he was coloured himself, and he's interviewing people and asking them about what are you here for and all this sort of stuff, and it was frightening, the responses that people were giving him. They didn't know the actual facts, but they were on the march because it was cool, and he literally caught people on camera saying that, like just crazy stuff, like just totally insane. Like he quoted about there was a white Australian woman who had no criminal record, was an upstanding member of the community, in her pajamas, shot dead by an African American police copper on the same police force that created the whole Black Matters thing.
Mm-hmm.
But no one knows about her. And there were people saying that didn't matter compared to what mattered with the Leroy and the whole impetus for that movement. It's just frightening. It's just like, it was just sheeple, and it was masses of sheeple. And I just see that it's so everywhere. Yeah, that's Evie. Heavy Yamini. Yeah, Kylie's onto it. Heavy Yamini. And what's it called? Rebel News. It brings an really interesting perspective to life. Yeah, don't be sheeple, hey? Doesn't work.
But we now live in times where we live in one of the most intense times in regard of we can't comprehend next year. Yeah, it's a fact. We can't comprehend. Like everyone's business is disrupted. I don't know anyone who's not disrupted, apart from a few people. But you could say 80% of the people are disrupted, and most business. So no one could, where we are right now, no one, I even couldn't. We are totally disrupted because I'm so dependent on doing tours and workshops. My whole business is based on workshops, doing workshops all around the country. Now with my publisher in England, I'm supposed to be in England doing book tours and things like that. I'm already was lined up with all the tours in France.
Yeah.
Doing workshops in Spain, and it was all last year already all lined up because I got a big publisher in England who has organized it all. Yeah. But bang, totally disrupted, and pretty much like 3/4 of my business is from workshops and bookshop tours and sales, and so my whole business overheads depend on with my workshops. So obviously, bang, COVID just had a totally different idea on that.
Me too. I'm supposed to be in Bora Bora.
Yeah, I'm supposed to be in England right now.
Yeah. Oh, well, Bora Bora will have to wait.
Yeah. And so obviously everyone's so dosed, but
I love that. Nikki just put a comment. People need an injection of critical thinking and applying discernment. Absolutely. Discernment's gone out the friggin' window, and people need to start thinking for themselves. And what's wrong with asking questions as well? Because it's like there's kind of this like backlash from the left that you're not even allowed to question it.
Yeah,
it's weird.
But what we're sitting on is, last 12 months ago, no one could imagine what's happening right now. No one.
Yeah.
That means we can't imagine what's going to be next year.
Yeah. Yes.
So that can be very, very, very spooky, very scary, or very exciting. Yes.
Yeah. George Orwell did.
Yeah. Of course. Like Chinese medicine would say, there's always a progression. You always can predict. Like the I Ching, fortune telling, has got 64 possibilities.
Yeah.
So George Orwell is one possibility of 63 other possibilities.
Yeah.
So of course, if everything is going the way it is, it's going to be George Orwell. It's essential, because that's However, if we say no to the demand of others that interfere with our yin and yang imbalance, and if we distance ourselves to how government wants us to do, and we distance ourselves to the corporation, how they want to rule our life, if we follow the path of yin and yang and take charge and be committed to the path of yin and yang, George Orwell will not happen.
Yeah. Yeah, we can change.
But then you got a totally different. We are in the I Ching, fortune telling, we are at hexagram 22 and 23 right now. Hexagram 22 is splitting apart, where the load has gone so much where the line is coming to the point, it's just about ready to crash. So as a result of that is hexagram 23 is always the next stage, which is the new beginning, where the foundation is at the bottom. However, I Ching says it's now up to you to determine what will be in the foundation, what will be at the bottom. What is your foundation? We can't continue the way it is. It's splitting apart. That's hexagram 22. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that means after that, it will start again with the new hexagram where the long, uninterrupted line is at the bottom. So you're starting building a foundation. If the foundation is built by the demands of corporations and George Orwell type guys, of course, they're going to take us in that direction.
Yep.
However, if we do the foundation and put it down on yin and yang and follow the path of yin and yang, it will move towards a paradise.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we're sitting on. That's what we're sitting on. Yeah.
Every one of us has an impact, right? We
can
make waves.
Not up to politicians anymore. No one even trusts the politicians. We got an election in Queensland next week. Nobody even knows who to vote anymore. Everyone's like, they don't trust anyone anymore. And so we can pretty much say, and the I Ching already said, at hexagram 22, people will have no interest or will not trust politicians and governments anymore. So it's all predicted. We are exactly in a state. It's not about the outer anymore. It's about the inner. Inner governs. The government is within your own personal governments. Mm-hmm. So that obviously need to understand, okay, the path of commitment rather than the path of obsession will actually be the path. Because if we give in to George Orwell, that's the path of obsession. I have nothing else other than that one value, and I need to just oblige to that value. And now I'm causing a liver blood stagnation, heart blood stagnation. That means cardiovascular disease, arteriosclerosis, depression, cancer, yeah, and so on and so on. So, but if we take on yin and yang as our part of our life, and that means we're going to, okay, every morning we've got to be up at 5. We've got to do our practice. We have to take our redox. Yeah, we have to take our herbs. That means by the time we have breakfast, we already balanced yin and yang. Then we commit to the profession that we do, and we stop at 1:30, 2 o'clock, and we have lunch, not at the desk. We commit to have lunch away from the desk. And we commit to have a lunch with wholesome food. And then we return to work, and we automatically, the yin is coming in because the day is fading towards the yin. So by the time it comes 5 o'clock, I now do a switch off practice that matches the intensity of the day. So if my intensity was 90, now I do a practice that matches this. That means I will not go for a walk in the park. It will not meet it. Yeah. So if my level of intensity is on this level, I got to really go intense in yoga practice. I go intense in martial art. I go hard in kicking. I do something equally intense that now takes the overactive mind into the application of the practice, which is via the water, which is the yin. Because at 5 o'clock, the energy is in the kidney, and kidney is water. If you now do the switch off practice between 5 p.m. and 7 p.m., you will provide water to that massive intensity you develop during the day. Yeah, and that's according to the Tao Te Ching. That's how the ancient people used to live. So the ancient people had a realized life, they had a realized culture, and they knew that the universe provides all the means to live in balance, in harmony with creation. And between 5 p.m. and 7 p.m., the energy is in the kidney. That means water. The water now will now put the fire down that has been activated during the day. And then when it comes 7:30, 7 o'clock, and I have dinner, I feel switched off, totally switched off. And I may watch TV, but I want to, after one episode, I want to finish. I want to go to bed because I can't wait to get into the yin mode, which is sleep. And then by the time I go to bed, 9 o'clock, 8:30, it just bang, it becomes a lasting deep sleep till say 4 o'clock. And then bang, the body wakes you up, ready for the yang. And you feel a new day, and you feel like you don't need holiday because you completed the day. And then you're just in it again. And so every day then has a new wonder, a new discovery phase. And then by the end of the day, you always feel a joy, a reward. You feel, life is awesome. So if we understand that, that means we are flexible. So that means whatever the intensity, the commitment we have, it always will have more than just one profession, more than one skill. Because whatever the switch off practice is, whatever those interests are, they will develop skills after a while. That means you always will be in demand to do something. They suddenly will ask you, okay, can you teach us calligraphy at our club? And then other people come up, I want to know more about you. You died. I want to know about how you cook. And in no time, you got a business. Business is the nature of life. Tao Te Ching says we are here on business. Business is the nature of life. And but we need to distance ourselves to the corporations so that we don't become their business. We have to be our own business. Be your own business.
Oops, sorry, didn't realize I was muted. I said, I love that about you, Jost. You are always a force for individuality and for helping people like discover their own paths, right? Discovering their own passions and their own mission in life and helping them stay in balance to do that. It's extraordinary. I just want to let everyone know I'll put some links in the chat group for the Zoom where you can get more resources, the Jost resources, his books and so forth, herbs, also information on breathing and Tai Chi and meditation, all sorts of things, as well as access to, if you want to learn more about the redox that Jost mentioned, there's a Tuesday night presentation every week at 7:30 p.m. Brisbane time, redoxtalks.com. And I also put those links into the Facebook Live as well. So you can see replays, or if you've got people that you would like to listen to this, to these interviews, they're great information, they're nuggets of wisdom, and can if people implement this, they can radically transform their lives. A lot of the stuff we talk about in these interviews is stuff that I literally health coach people that have got some major illnesses. And last night I was on the call with a couple of guys in the UK. And one guy 5 months ago, he was just struggling to keep a full-time job and had been sick for 17 months. And 5 months later, he's doing 25 miles on a mountain bike and lost 30 pounds and done heaps of cool stuff. So this stuff works. And, people need to hear about it. It just always surprises me that there's not that many people on our calls, really, for the number of people that need it. So be kind and reach out to someone, invite them to listen to the replays. They're all under the unit section in the Renew with Redox Facebook group. And I think they're going to be you're on your YouTube site as well now, Jost. Is that right? You're putting a lot of these interviews onto YouTube?
Nick is doing all that.
Yeah. Nicole's awesome. So look, they're easy to get to. And massive thanks to you, Jost, for taking the time out of your day to continue to educate us. It's been amazing. I always take notes. I always learn stuff. I'm super grateful.
There's a great comment here. Do you know if a planet with another solar system would have a G cycle? The answer is yes, of course.
Yeah.
G cycle is Tao. Anything that's in the physical world is generated by the 5 elements and by yin and yang. So you can't be in the physical not having a G cycle. So it doesn't matter what planet we are on, we always will have the G cycle. That's the beauty of it. It's independent of, doesn't matter if you're if you're an alien with green skin and have 5 arms or whatever, it's always G-cycle.
Absolutely. I see a comment there from Ben. Are you running for Prime Minister, Jost? You know, you have my vote. Absolutely.
Yeah, very, very easy job. Tell everyone to govern themselves.
Yeah. That's right. That'd be a wake-up call for self-responsibility, wouldn't it?
I would turn up at Parliament 9 o'clock. Say, okay, very easy. Just govern yourself. Okay.
Yeah. I learned last week that Scott Morrison has a full-time minister devoted to reducing red tape in business. Hat off to him for that. That's actually pretty cool, right? This minister's job full-time is to reduce red tape for business. Good for him. That sounds good.
Yeah, they must waste so many hours in a day, those guys.
Yeah, trying to get rid of red tape. Yeah.
This is like 95% is just drama and bullshit.
Yeah.
It's just like the whole politics could be done. They could get the whole thing done in one day, probably, what they do in 3 years, if they wouldn't have that bullshit there.
Yeah. But I see it all the time. I see people take a lot longer to do the core work than they need to. They're just like spinning the wheels and not getting traction. So get traction, just do it.
You can't resolve it in the periphery. You have to go into the center. That's how it is.
Yeah. Love your work, Jost. Thank you so much for all you do. We'll wrap it up. Bye, everyone. Have a great week and implement what we're learning.
Yeah, implement it. Live the cheat.
Get committed to 2 or more things.
More than 3 things.
Yeah. Bye now. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.